That'll be you.
That'll be me, yeah, thank you. Right, so, a bit of an open session here, really. So we've talked an awful lot today, and yesterday, about ITMF, about signals funding, about all the various things that you want to know about how that process works. Just had a great session about procurement, which, to be honest, is one of the things I get asked about more than anything else. How this is all great. How the hell do we procure it? There you go. I think the use of the word fun in that presentation was meant to be slightly ironic, but it was fun. It's great stuff. It's vitally important that we get that right. I think you're right. That's really, Steve, I think that's really a point about you say, we listen. And I think, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So for this last session here, really, we want to do a bit of a Q&A. We want to do a bit of a kind of surgery session. And basically open the floor to you to ask myself and Paula any questions you have about ITMF, anything you want to know, anything that you've heard over the last few days that you didn't understand, any questions you have, anything you have around being a local authority and bidding, or being a supplier, being part of the process, forming consortia, anything like that. And we'll try and do our best to answer it. And we'll sit here for as long as you want us. So
I was going to say, you're not going to go striding out into the audience, are you, sort of Jerry Springer style?
I have no intention of doing that whatsoever.
In that case, sit down.
No, I will need to sit down. Right, okay, I'll sit down.
I find him rather threatening when he's pacing up and down.
We'll sit down.
That way. Right, so, here's your opportunity. If you had questions that you haven't already badgered the guys on over the various tea breaks, dinner breaks, drinks breaks that we've had over the last couple of days, does anyone have any questions? I will certainly come up with some if you haven't. Not that I was given notice that I needed to, but never mind. I'm not seeing any hands going up so far. Are you seeing any hands going up so far? If not...
No, so I will keep talking.
Right, well, no, don't just keep talking, because we've heard that. And it goes down a very dodgy path involving
my natural
websites
response to the situation.
And, you know, the sort of stuff you were wearing at Studio 54 back in the 70s.
Charming.
What I was going to...
Says the man wearing the Triumph top.
What I was going to ask Paula is... Has anyone asked anything so far of this fund? Any questions that you've come across so far that people have raised that perhaps it'd be worth sharing the audience here, the answers you've been able to give so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the sort of more consistent comments and questions I've had is about local authorities who are looking for innovative solutions and how they can procure them, or more importantly, how they can procure them if they're being asked to get 3 sort of quotes. And I guess this is the sort of the point that Steve was talking about earlier. If you need help and support through that sort of procurement space, do get in contact with Kerry and the team, because that's exactly why we set up the innovation procurement system, because innovation, often by its nature, is something that is unique. That means that it isn't always something that you can get 3 quotes for or whatever. So, you know, that is a common question I've heard. The other question I've heard, which also Kerry has answered, is if I'm a local authority, how do I find out all the different sort of innovative sort of solutions out there? One of the reasons we've created the sort of the database is so that there is that opportunity just to sort of see, see what there is. And if you're already a local authority and one of your SMEs or one of your suppliers is not here, do encourage them to get themselves on that directory, really. And then I think one of the final things I would say that I've heard lots of comments about is just how much people are keen to see the learning that either comes out from the GSOG, the TSOG. I made a new fund there, sorry, Anthony. The TSOG or the GLF, or maybe there is a GSOG fund coming next year. So one of the sort of comments I've had is, how do I find out what other local authorities are doing? So we will later in the year be having, for the TSOG and the GLF, we'll be having groups of authorities, either north or south. We'll see how that sort of moves, getting together as groups, and we will share that. And absolutely with the ITMF, it is imperative that we share some of the lessons that are happening, not just the things that are going well, but some of the challenges that people have been faced with as well, which will also help sort of DFT consider future funding and so forth. So I think they're the key ones, okay. and not much else really.
Darren, a completely different question, because I haven't seen it. If a hand has gone up, I haven't spotted it. There's a hand gone up. Right, there, you sir.
Hi, Alex Cliff from Norfolk County Council. So Obviously, you're looking for new ways of doing things, you're looking for innovation. That means we're straying into the territory of things that have never been done before. There's no proven track record, but clearly you're going to need the confidence that we as a local authority will be able to deliver and have the capability to deliver. So what's your advice in applications to demonstrate that we're able to deliver?
It's a very good question, and I don't have a simple answer to that. I'll answer it in a slightly different way. So I'll start off with a fairly technical point. The funding that we've issued, the ITMF funding, is different from TSOG and GLF. They were issued under Section 31 of the Local Government Act. They were for maintenance funding. They were for you to go and spend maintaining stuff, and we expect you to go and spend it and maintain stuff. The ITMF grant will be issued under Section 5 of the 1965 Science and Technology Act, that old favourite. And although that tells you nothing, it also tells you something. It tells you that this is science and technology, this is research money, it's not maintenance money. Now, what that means is we don't expect you to go and spend it and fail, but we do have a slightly different risk appetite with this funding. We do understand that there will be more risk to this. We do accept that what we're asking you to do is to propose innovation and propose new ways of working, as you just said. And that is inherently more risky than going and asking you to change halogen lamps to LED lamps. We fully get that. So we look for you to demonstrate, and you will see if you when you look at the questions in the ITMF guidance, we will see we don't ask you for many definites. We ask you to give us evidence that you have a workable solution, that you have a partnership that looks credible, you have a plan that looks deliverable. We're looking for evidence that your bid looks credible to us, and it looks like it has a good chance of success, and you have mechanisms in place to manage it, to evaluate it, to see that you're delivering, to see that you're doing the things you say you would do. If you have that kind of in place, that mechanism in place, then that's kind of what we're looking for, because that gives us some surety. And as I say, we're not asking for guarantees, because there are no guarantees in research, but we're looking for that kind of evidence that you've done that. And again, there's a complexity in there, because
just before you go into the complexity, because I think we've all had enough complexity for one afternoon.
No,
I'm going to roll you back for a minute, right? So you're going to pose the question on the form. Now, give me some reason to believe you is one way of putting the question, yeah?
Yes.
Right? So what sort of thing might someone put under there that would make you think, okay, that sounds plausible, that sounds credible? I can give you some examples from my own experience, but what sort of thing would make you feel warm about an application?
Well, I'm going to carry on regardless and carry on talking about complexity, but by saying what we try to do with the process is ensure that we give you the opportunity to give us the evidence that will present that, but we don't stymie innovation. We don't overly prescribe what we want to see, because we want you to be innovative. So the kind of things that I would be looking for are you have a partnership, maybe not fully formed, but nearly fully formed. So you know who will deliver the various elements of your project. You have a project plan that has credible milestones in it. So if you are delivering complex technology, you have a sensible time frame in which to deliver it. You have a clear understanding of standards and interfaces and how things will be plugged together. All those kind of things are the sort of evidence that will give us some kind of credence that what you are proposing is a reasonable solution.
What about internal resourcing, that sort of thing? Sort of the people who are bidding. What makes you think, yes, I think they've got the bodies, the people there to do that sort of thing?
Well, again, to start off on a slightly different question. This is capital funding, not revenue. So it's about buying capital asset. But obviously, we expect that you will wrap into that the resource you need to deliver the project. You will wrap in the staff time and the other resources you need to deliver that. And we would like to see a plan, again, that looks credible, a plan that has a reasonable amount of resource within that £2 million, or however much you bid for, assigned to delivery and staffing and project management and evaluation. And just giving us a feel that there is although the thing you want to deliver may be innovative, the structure that you have around how you will do that is as solid and credible as you can evidence.
The thing that, and we'll see whether Darren nods or not, so a couple of things I would add, having sat on the receiving end of bids quite often in my time, is if you might think some things are very obvious. Like, we wouldn't bid for this money if we didn't have somebody to spend it. Well, it might be obvious to you, but it isn't obvious to us because we don't know who's on the payroll. We don't know who's sitting there. So if you've actually got a team set up and you're able to say, this will be led by real people who exist, who you can name, that helps.
That would be nice. Yes.
Very often, and I'm not sure it applies to this one, but very often there's an aspirational element to bids, which is we intend to involve, we intend to set up a steering group, which is great. I intend to lose weight between now and Christmas. Ain't going to happen, right? Because I said that every year for many years, as my wife will tell you. Aspirations are lovely, whereas we have lined up these people. We have, as Darren says, we have this partnership in place, all but for the money coming through, the wet ink will be signed and we're raring to go. That's the sort of thing I think you're looking
that's
for.
Right. I think, yes, aspiration in terms of the ambition of the thing you want to deliver, but not so much aspiration in terms of the structure you want to use. That should be as firmed up as it can be.
And let me take it back. I'll come to you next, so the microphone will make its way to you. That point, Darren, you said that there's an aspirational bit there that you said, you want some confidence that it is going to work, but you were playing that against science and, well, it might not work. How confident have I got to be that this is actually going to fly?
Yeah, but
Paula,
I think,
do you want to go on that?
Yeah, well, this is where I would refer you to. It's absolutely important to read the ITMF guidance because it's also quite clear in the guidance that this isn't about, starships or space hoppers or whatever. There has to be an element that whatever you're doing, you have a sense it's going to work. It's not something so far out there that actually the whole project is an entire risk. Okay. Because we also want to be able to look at replicability, but also, as Darren has said throughout the 2 days, along with sort of GLF, TSOG and ITMF, all of this collectively adds to the evidence base that allows DFT to continue to go back to Treasury and others and show that if this is working through ITMF, then more councils that can do these things, the more funding that can help that happen, really.
Excellent. Okay. You, sir.
Tim Ray from Capes Trafficcom. My question's really around the scope of ITMF. There's going to be technologies in this room that will do in a different way address the same problem statement. We want to reduce congestion. 10 different technologies probably available in this room to address that. Is it likely that the department will be keen to address a broader range of problem statements rather than just fixing one problem 10 times in 10 different ways?
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Mark. Yes.
Damn, I asked a short question.
The analogy I keep using is this thing about bright fires burning in the forest. We want to create a number of demonstrators that people can go and look at and touch and feel and kick the tyres off. And the aim of this is to set stuff up that then allows other people to buy with confidence. So we start, and quite rightly that the sector we're in is conservative with a small c. We like to buy things that other people have bought that we can see. This is why often innovation struggles, because somebody has to be the first adopter. This is an opportunity to give some authorities and their suppliers the opportunity at quite low risk to be those first adopters. But I don't imagine we will award 10 versions of the same thing, because where's the innovation in 9 of them? I expect, and again, it's an open process and people will bid what they bid, but I hope that we end up with a real spread in terms of large authorities, small authorities, urban, rural, north, south, solutions around a whole range of things. And at the end of it, we end up with projects that are all doing something different that we can all go look at. And just the one thing to add to that, of course, and this goes back to what Anthony was saying this morning, this has come out of the plan for drivers. So there's a bit of a steer there on the type of thing we expect you to do. Now, again, we are and have been at pains to comment that plan for drivers doesn't mean we've forgotten about active travel and public transport and peds and cycles. That doesn't mean that at all. But it does give us, it does set a flavour for this money's come from a certain place. That gives us a certain agenda of what we should be trying to do with it.
Yeah, I say yeah. Really, the steer is making sure that scope is relatively wide.
Yes. And the other thing I would caution on that point is that it isn't necessarily about doing new shiny stuff. It's not about saying we would like to do more clever things than we've ever done before. That's great. It's also about doing the things we do now better. And we all know that one of the largest problems we have in the sector is resource.
It's money.
It's keeping the lights on, it's keeping detection working, keeping complex technologies running. One of the reactions to this could be to say we're going to use new technology to allow us to do the things we need to do in our city in a much more efficient, modern way that requires less manpower, less resource, whatever. It's not necessarily about the new and shiny. It can be about better, innovative, new ways of doing the things that we already need to do.
Thank you.
There's a hand in the
Okay,
corner.
we've got...
And one down here.
Hang on, where? I was going to say one, but actually we've got 3 more questions, and we're going to take the 3 questions and then answer them, and then we're finished, because otherwise we're going to wildly overrun. So the answers will be kept quite short. Let's see if any of the afternoon speakers have a question.
Adrian Withhill, Derbyshire County Council. I'm going to ask you a slightly provocative question in a second, if that's okay. Tomorrow morning we have a meeting with our team for the ITMF. We have the ideas, we've got the team formed, ready to go. So one of the items on the agenda is confidentiality. Why should we share any of our ideas with anybody? Because we are in competition for the money, which goes against the nature, by the way, because it is good to share and best practice around the place, but we want the money, and we want to deliver the benefits of that money to the people of the area where we'll be applying ITMF. So at the moment, unless anyone tells me otherwise, we'll be keeping pretty mum on what we're up to.
Okay, good question. Over to you, sir.
Andrew Walsh, Transport for the West Midlands. Take your point about plan for drivers, but there are some of us who work for authorities which have very different policies around active travel and public transport to prioritise that over other modes, and we have to fit this bid within what our relevant local policies are, as well as meeting any national aspirations. So that, just a point on that. I'm afraid my actual question is about procurement. So the bid guidelines call for naming the consortium, but we will not undertake a procurement exercise until we know whether we've been successful or not with the funding application. So we're not in a position to name a confirmed consortium, but we would like to name suppliers, but our own procurement rules will make that difficult. So is there a...
How do we navigate through that? Okay, and the third question, I'm afraid... Oh, there we go.
Mark Pladell, PTC and Topaz. We've talked about at the beginning, Adrian's pointed out the issues about IPM protection. At the end of the period, there are going to be 10, 15 people running interesting systems, the successful bidders. If there's a revenue requirement to keep those things going, is it acceptable to identify revenue requirement within the bids so that we do continue to get the benefits of these interesting solutions?
Right, excellent questions. We've got all 3 there. Let's take them in turn. Confidentiality. Why would people want to be sharing their brilliant idea when they want to benefit from... Is this share at the point of bidding, or is this having bid and won? At the point of bidding. Afterwards, it's all open and fair. But at the point of bidding, what's the answer there? I imagine you don't have to tell anyone what your bid is going to be, do you?
No, the bidding is a confidential process. It's the sharing after the bid has been awarded that you would be expected to do. So that's a really simple one to answer.
Excellent. In which case, we'll go cracking straight on to the second one, which is the procurement conundrum here. So is there a way past that one?
No. Not one I can give you. I mean, the one thing I can't do as government, I can't write you a free pass away from your own procurement rules. You have to follow your rules, and that is a problem. And obviously there is an element of cart before horse here. You need to tell us what you do before we give you the money to do it. Again, it comes back to that first question about evidence and credibility. Shows evidence that you have a credible consortium in place or assembled and ready to go. And again, I'm putting words into your mouth, it's up to you how you do it, but if you can get letters of intent, if you can get letters of goodwill or whatever, however you do that, and you really need to work with your procurement people to work out what works best within your standing orders, I think. But yes, it is a problem, it always will be a problem. I hope you can deal with that, and again, speaking to the private sector people in the audience, I hope you will show good faith and help local authorities to put those draft consortia together on the basis that all else is equal, you might win. You might get work out of it. So again, I would ask just for as much as possible a little bit of goodwill and practicality around this, just to try and deal with that issue.
I mean, it comes back, doesn't it, Darren, to that point about what would give you confidence.
Yeah.
So when you're reading the answer, if you can't say, well, we've already got these people under contract, well, okay, why would I think that you're going to be good to go? And if you're able to produce evidence of that, then that might do the trick.
And that's why the application process is a series of boxes for you to put text in. It's not a series of tick boxes. There isn't a tick box that says you have a consortium, tick, because we don't think anybody will be able to tick that. We're giving you what quite large text boxes to be able to put a narrative in that explains in a credible way that we should believe we should support what you're trying to do.
Okie dokie, in which case, last question of the afternoon, which is, this is another capital fund?
Yep.
So you award some capital, something is implemented, but it's going to need revenue to keep it going.
Nope.
What's the answer to, well, now hang on, it is. I think the answer to the question is, but he hasn't got any. So bidders might just need to have that in mind, that much as it will be lovely to think that DfT will be dobbing out some money that will carry on funding this in a stream, actually you need to be thinking that that's going to fall back to the authority.
It is a question I kind of tried to address in the guidance as much as I couldn't. And what I said was, again, going back to this idea of local authorities don't necessarily want lots of new funky things. They want cheaper, more effective ways of doing what they can. That's valid innovation. Developing projects that you can say, actually, there will be some wider saving that will allow us to be more revenue efficient, that might allow us to continue to do this. That's all good stuff. Who knows? You know, the very successful projects that really do set an example, maybe we will find in future years ways of continuing to fund that. We just don't know. It's possible. But at the moment, no, that there is nothing we can say other than to ask you to think about that sustainability as part of the innovation you put in. Innovation has to be sustainable in a very cash-strapped sector that we are.
I think that's an absolutely key point there, that the situation on resource funding doesn't look to me to be likely to get any easier anytime soon. So any solutions that you're thinking of need to have that as one of the factors in your minds. And on that bombshell, I think
can I just quickly dispel 3 myths that I've heard repeated this week?
I don't know whether you can. Why don't you have a go?
I'll have a try. I'll give it a go. Right, okay. Bids need to be £2 million each. No, they don't. Bids can be between £500,000 and £2 million. That's important because I know of a number of small authorities that have said we would really love to do this. We've got a really innovative idea. As a small authority, we couldn't swallow a £2 million research fund. They don't have to be. £500,000 to £2 million. I've heard people say there is no point because it'll be the big authorities, it'll be the Manchesters and Birminghams and others that win it. They might win some. I would hope they do. They will put really good bids in. But we are specifically looking for bids from across the spectrum. And solutions that solve the problems that we see in counties, solutions that we see that work in rural areas and in small towns, they're just as valuable as what we do in the middle of Birmingham. So no, if you're thinking that the big authorities will hoover up all the money, that's not the case. The third one related to that is there's no point because there are a small number of authorities that are just really good at writing bids. They'll win it. If you read the questions, you'll see that the process has been designed very much to avoid that happening. It's very much about you providing the evidence that you're good enough, your proposal is good enough and worth funding. There's very little opportunities for the professional bid writers to flex their muscles, roll their sleeves up and put a traditional government grant type bid in. So we tried to make it as even as possible in the way that you answer the questions. And I think,
that would do, yeah. I mean, ChatGPT is probably not going to do it for you. I think that's what you're saying.
Well,
We'll
we
find out.
might have our own AI that can check other people's AI to see if it's been generated by AI. You know.
Well, on that bombshell, I think we're going to say Darren and Paula are here. Darren, I know, is happy to stay on until well into the evening if you have further questions. So if you do, seek him out. But otherwise, let's say a big thank you to Darren and Paula.